Hey, what's going on, guys? Me, Labb, and welcome back to another video. It's been nearly 2 months since I've uploaded, so yeah, I hope you guys do enjoy listening to me talk. So why are fursuit prices so high? And generally, why you should stop about that. It really isn't that large of an issue within the fandom, and I will be going through my points and why it really isn't or shouldn't be an issue, as many people see. I was inspired to make this video by a tweet from Nix. People saying that fursuits were overpriced. Now, I know there have been some spectacle suits, like, you know, where $1,000 for one, or someone pays $200 million for one. That didn't happen, but you know, this is more prevalent in the camp of younger furries. You know, the furries who just jump into the fandom, want to get a fursuit, all the art possible, and then they see the prices are anywhere from $1,000 to $7,000 or euros, possibly even 180 million Vietnamese dong. It is quite shocking to see. And the reason why fursuit prices are so high is purely rooted in the basics of economics, or furonomics as I like to call it. So let's get to class. Right, class, let's get into this. Furonomics 101. The basics of furonomics are simple, and basics of any economics are simple, are supply and demand. And I'm going to be making a video about the meme economy in the fandom later, but the basics of supply and demand is, as the Brazilian Overwatch superstar says, "Oh, let's break it down!" You want a fursuit, that's demand. They make fursuit, that's supply. Now, what qualifies you to talk about economics? I work as a public sector financial assistant, you little shit. I mean, if you want the fucking bro. Now, supply and demand in the fandom is a very volatile position. The fandom has way too much demand and not enough supply, due to the fact that fursuit taking months to make. It even often gives a massive supply delay, among other things. While demand continues, this is one part of the factor when thinking of price is. When you're contacting DHC, ew, fucking disgusting. If I see you at DHC, I'll kick you in the face.
I will stop being so polite. Get the fuck out of my sight before I demolish you.
Or mischief makers, both two massive fursuit makers with major followings. This causes these specific makers to have massive demand towards their specific product. So they charge them much larger prices to increase the competition for people who are actually wish to use or wish to commission that suit, you know? And this is due to the fact fursuit making is a business, and is essentially as much as a business as any other freelance artwork. Much like painting, photography, digital art, like we always see in the fandom. This is made even harder for individuals outside of the sphere like DHC and Mischief Maker. These two, as I mentioned, are actual companies with multiple employees working on different suits. Hence why they charge so much, because they also must pay the employees. Although, don't buy anything from DHC. If you do, you're a monster. When it comes to freelance, there's a much higher likelihood for prices being put up, because the difference between a company and freelance is people need to live off of this, and in today's society, fucking hell, that's hard. Not only this, but global market inflation, not that kind, but rent prices, food prices, fuel and energy prices. Not only the price of material, fur, foam goes skyrocketing because these aren't essential items, so people can charge more. The world is in a global struggle, mostly created by capitalism. As global market and prices go up, fursuit makers who make luxury items are required to put up prices because of the fact they need to live in an ever more expensive world. When fursuit makers need to prioritize making fursuits for a low cost and being able to eat or pay rent, they will choose the fact that they wish to continue living. I am also purely speaking that all the payment is required before taxes. My friend Nick sent me a document outlining how they typically price their fursuits. In it, they outline around 20% of the market price for the fursuit, and what they receive goes to the IRS. Now on a $500 suit, that may be $100, but on a suit over $5,500, that's over $1,100 goes towards taxes. On top of taxes, there's the price of shipping, and to further complicate things, shipping internationally. Taxes and shipping internationally is mental. And I wanted to speak on another thing that drastically affects pricing and even further pricing on fursuits. So I live in Ireland.
Kom te mooi gaff if you wanna saucy sambo.
Let's say I pay $5,000 for a fursuit from the United States. Now, shipping was included, but it's a US package entering the European Union's EA or economic area. We need to pay taxes and customs on these purchases known as VAT or value added tax. America doesn't have that. They They just fucking go willy-nilly with the tax. This adds anywhere from €20 to €150, even I think €250 for the PC, because I ordered it, my PC, because I ordered it from Ironside, which is a company in Wisconsin, United States. And it's all on top of the price that we already paid based on the value of the item enclosed. To get a better idea what affects a fursuit maker, I'm not a fursuit maker myself, and I decided to ask the great, the unbelievable, the mystical Lady Nightlight to join.
Hello, so you want to know all about pricing fursuits. The short answer is, it is different for every maker and their own living situation, material cost and demand for their products. Therefore, I want to say I am very in favour of makers being able to charge whatever they wish. As for myself, I have been making for 6 years now. I started off charging with just the material cost and a little for my time for the very first few heads I made, as it was just a hobby. These heads were made using cheaper materials, but it did allow me to sell the heads for cheap and to gain experience. Since graduating in university in an art degree, I try to be a little more professional with my prices. My heads now start at $1,500, which is a big difference from the $250 I charged per head when I started. To price my heads, I first look at the material cost. Not only do I now use higher quality materials than when I began, years ago, but those materials have also increased in price. After I calculate how much on average each head will cost to make, I then calculate a rough time that it takes to create a single basic fursuit head. This is why trying to calculate an average hourly pay when you're just starting out as a maker doesn't really work, as you don't have enough heads created to calculate a true average completion time, and you also speed up with experience. This is one of the reasons why I advise newer makers to avoid taking on commissions until they have made at least 3 completed fursuit heads. Before I became a sole trader, my heads used to cost $900 each as a starting price. This allowed for $300 on material costs, as well as paying me the minimum wage of about €10 an hour. The heads back then took me about 60 hours to make, as I was less experienced and slower. As an artisanal sole trader, you usually want to charge between $20 and $30 an hour in Ireland as your starting hourly pay. And so you add to this the material cost of your head to get a base price on your fursuit heads. So say the material cost per head is $300, and it takes you a full week of full-time hours to make the head. For me, it's about 40 hours now, as I am faster than I was years ago. Then your starting price should be $1,100, which is actually what mine were until very recently. However, if this is going to be your full-time job, you need to charge more than this, as currently this only pays for your hourly income and the material cost, but it does not account for the machine maintenance and putting money back into your business. My local enterprise office recommended that I raise my prices by 30% in order to account for this, or to alternatively find a way to create heads faster without impeding on the quality. I decided to use my degree in mold making to make a head-based mold from which I could pull casts from. This would reduce my fursuit head building time from 40 hours to about 30 hours for a basic head, thus increasing my hourly pay without putting the cost on the customer. Doing this, I ensured that for a short time at least, I wouldn't need to increase my prices a great deal when I was started setting up my business legitimately. However, this is unsustainable in the long run if I wish to continue improving my business and the quality of my products. I will need to raise them again eventually as machine maintenance cost continues to increase, and if I wish to offer other designs and options that require specialized equipment. The extra hourly income will also mean that I get to experiment with new techniques and conduct my own trials for different materials to ensure my customers can get the best quality I can produce. I see you asking about shipping costs and how that affects my prices. Shipping to and from Ireland is very expensive and needs to be accounted for. Ireland has very few manufacturers of raw materials, and this means not only are materials generally harder to find and a lot more expensive than if you were going to buy from say America, but you will also need to consider you will have to pay shipping and import duties when ordering the items from overseas. Here is a random example. Say an item which would cost you €30 could cost another €10 in shipping, and then when it gets here you find out it costs another €15 in import tax if it's coming from outside of the EU. This means the material you had accounted to cost only €30 during your research is now costing you a total of €55. This means that generally speaking, fursuits are more expensive to produce here in smaller countries like Ireland than they are in America. This causes makers to have a slimmer profit margin when they price their suits similarly to the American makers, and it makes it less sustainable as a long-term income for many EU artists. I believe this is part of the reason why you see very few EU fursuit makers creating for more than 5 years. Shipping abroad from Ireland is expensive. The last parcel I sent to America with tracked and insured, shipping can cost approximately €400. I always warn potential clients about the additional cost as I have them pay for it, obviously. I find this does dissuade a lot of potential customers, as unfortunately a lot of people just aren't comfortable paying the high shipping cost. On the other hand though, this does mean I get to sell more suits in Ireland, which means I get to see them again in future at local events, which is incredibly rewarding. As for your question on living costs and rent when it comes to fursuit making, I am in the extremely fortunate position of living with my incredibly generous parents. This means I do not need to pay rent, and my contributions towards bills and food are kept to a minimum. I am not currently renting a space for my crafting, as all of my fursuits are created in the family recreational room, though I am trying to save for my own workshop or shed to be placed in the garden. Now the next segment I need to give a disclaimer for. I am not a financial consultant and these figures may be incorrect. Please seek advice from a professional on the following discussion. One aspect they tell you to watch out for when setting up a business is to account for tax season. October is when your taxes are due, and you are usually taxed between 20 and 40% on your profits from the previous year. Considering this, you should have approximately 30% of your income left over to cover your hourly pay, 30% to put back into the business and to improve it and to keep up with the competition, and then another 30% for tax season. However, depending on your country, you might have certain reliefs available. For example, in Ireland there is the Irish Artist Tax Exemption, in which you can earn a living on your art tax-free up to an earning of about $50,000. I have recently applied for this myself, though it is never guaranteed, and you should always prepare your finances as though you are not going to receive it. As far as I can recall, VAT is optional until you earn over €75,000 in Ireland, though I cannot be certain, and again, please seek consultation with a professional on this. With all of this taken into consideration, please remember that everyone's pricing methods are valid and should be respected, and not everyone will agree on certain pricing aspects. Thank you for having me on here in your video. I thoroughly enjoyed getting to explain my thought process when it comes to pricing fursuits. If you want to find me online, I go by Lady Nightlight on all of my social media accounts. I have a website called ladynightlight.com where you can find a gallery of my works. I also have a Discord group for anyone who wishes to join in the lair, if Labb is so kind as to link it in the description. Have a great day and I hope to see you all again soon.
So, thank you, Lady Nightlight, for coming on to further explain things. Her links will be down below, especially for those EU furs that watch me. She's an Irish fursuit maker and I highly recommend checking them out. Opinion time. It's opinion time. Everyone draw your fucking swords.
You bunch of fuckers. Despite the provocation from the cavalry, no fighting. Wait! No fighting. No fucking fighting. No fighting. No fucking fighting! Good.
Fursuits aren't necessary. They are a luxury item. There's a high bias in the fandom that you need to have a fursuit in any way be likable or approachable, even when creating content, and that just isn't the case anymore. Fursuits may help with your ability to blend in and become part of the fandom and further your feelings within the fandom, but it's not the entirety of it. I've been in the fandom nearly 10 years and I still don't have a fursuit, and don't actually, I don't have a fursuit. I don't have any plans for a fursuit at all yet. The entire feeling of need and want that fursuits are a backbone and constant in the fandom is wrong, and it's mostly perpetuated by envy. People see fursuiters like Majira, Fluke, and many others and are envious by their popularity. A lot of this stems from the fact people within the fandom didn't have the best high school experience or friendship experiences in general. Unless you're Hunt the fucking Hound, I don't care. What I'm trying to say is that fursuits aren't necessary and they are a luxury, an extension of, therefore fursuit prices will be higher, and we need to understand and learn to deal with that. As the global market shifts, prices will come down. This idea that everyone needs to have ample access to fursuits is frankly idiotic. I know you want one, but fursuit makers shouldn't be underpricing a quality product and putting themselves in financial turmoil just so you can have some fun. And I wanted to touch on a lot of the public outcry about this with a specific video I remember from an old friend of mine, Leon Arenthio. See, Arenthio was a furry YouTuber and creator that attempted to place every incident of justice in the fandom and play it off as a communistic solution. Here's a video of him singing Red Sun in the Sky. But my favourite point he ever made, just to show you how stupid it is, he made a point called materialism in the furry fandom, in which he states that black people will be at an inherent disadvantage because they cannot afford fursuits, and this will essentially cut them out from any sort of notoriety in the furry fandom.
Like, that's the main reason we don't see any black popular furries. Like, when they join the community, they're going to be turned off by the fact that they'll be at an inherent disadvantage for not being able to afford these things. And the ones that do stay won't be represented at all because they're all on the slow track. And this is where a lot of the shit that really pisses me off stems from. Like, every time something like BLM comes up, like, that's the main reason we don't see any black popular furries. Like, when they join the community, they're going to be turned off by the fact that they'll be at an inherent disadvantage for not being able to afford these things. And the ones that do stay won't be represented at all because they're all on the slow track. And this is where a lot of the shit that really pisses me off stems from. Like, every time something like BLM comes up, like, the first thing that happens is all the white popular furries are like, BLM, BLM. And obviously they don't give a shit about Black Lives Matter. All they care about is absorbing the social capital. And when it comes...
How the fuck did why fursuits are important turn into the problem with BLM? What is wrong with you? Like, you can't pull out some fucking governmental injustice and go, yeah, this is why fursuit prices should be lower. I understand food prices, stuff that's a basic necessity, but when you're arguing that because people had been under economic injustice for so many years, they should be allowed to buy diamond rings at $1 a pop, fucking hell, man. But what is the alternative? Well, it's easy. Stop going to big makers. If you don't have a lot of money, instead give the little creators a chance. One other creator I'm friends with is Nerdish or Dylan, the creator behind the newly created Nerdyfur Studios. They are a small fursuit creator with lower prices than most of their American or UK counterparts, with decent quality fursuits. They charge on average about $500 to $1,000 per fursuit, and that is a decent price, I will say, but the biggest catalyst for this is social media. Social media and public exposure is the biggest contribution to the popularity of a maker and their first actually reaching the open market. Why and how? Well, let me give you a demonstration. A streamer, YouTuber, or furry Twitter personality gets big. People start to recognize that suit, and it causes masses to ask, who made your suit? Oh, it's For My Asshole. Yeah, my favourite company, For My Asshole. Then, when the relatively unknown creator gets more and more commissions, it becomes a staple. They then have this massive commission that they can't take all of them, so they raise the price to the amount they need, and more to create competition and make sure that the people who really want it can pay. This is allowed because they put time and effort into that suit. That is the life cycle of any fursuit maker. But because the creator puts up the prices, people who now know who can't afford it, instead of finding smaller creators, they bitch and they completely whine on Twitter about it. If you were to actually look and find smaller artists, you could have given them a chance. This is my sort of area because you get it for a good price and give the creator a chance to upskill themselves. That's why I like to do with artists, is whenever I commission something, specifically for Labb, I always say, or like any of my other characters, do what the fuck you want. Like, if they're like, oh, like, I already like their art, or I love seeing artwork of Labb through any means necessary, as long as it's not weirdly NSFW and shit like that, because Labb is a SFW character despite her murderous intent. I always tell them that they have free artistic reign with it, because I don't like to keep people constrained, and that's why I always go to smaller artists to give them a chance, and they always come out good. But now, unfortunately, I don't have many or much knowledge on prototyping suits and how they work, but I know they're expensive because it adds a different level of detail to it. If you didn't know, or you probably do, prototyping suits have like wiring and entire kind of face plates into it, and that obviously triples the price most likely. But yeah, you may see a suit from me soon enough. Thanks for watching.